I once swore before my mother's coffin that I would never pick up men in this life. Whenever I encountered men who were gravely wounded, destitute, or desperately on the run, I turned a blind eye to all of them. That one in ragged clothes yet with an extraordinary air called Lu Mingwang. Obviously someone I couldn't touch. I let my concubine, born younger sister walking behind me, pick him up. Later, Lu Mingwang ran me through with a sword, his eyes blood red as he growled. Why didn't you save me back then? Damned if I pick them up. Damned if I don't. I was truly furious. After my rebirth, I picked up all the wild men on the roadside and brought them home. Screw it. You all can raise goo together. When I was young, my mother picked up a little beggar by the roadside. After washing him clean and taking a look, he was actually quite handsome, so she tossed him into the minister's manor to work as a guard. When turmoil broke out at the border, the guard joined the army, and by the time he returned to the capital, he had already become a general. With military merits to his name, the young general sought to marry Minister Jiang's only daughter. It became quite the romantic tale. Later, the minister's manor was raided. My father personally led the soldiers there. My father was made a marquis. My mother cried herself blind, and only us two, women of different surnames, me and my mother, we're left of the Jing family to scrape by. When I was 2, my mother used 3 feet of white silk to join my grandparents. Father slumped before my mother's coffin, red veins crawling across his eyes, rubbing my head as he said softly, "You honor, Father will surely protect you for your entire life." I secretly swore in my heart that I would never pick up a man in this life, especially a man like my father. Everyone knew that Marquis Shangping was deeply devoted to his late wife. Yet the mansion was stuffed with concubines, each bearing 2 or 3 parts resemblance to Lady Jiang. Watching my illegitimate siblings being born one after another, I felt even dogs would disdain such deep devotion. Father kept his vow made before the coffin. Though countless beauties filled the mansion, none sat in the position of marchioness, and no one dared to look down on me, the only legitimate daughter of the Marquis's household. I also kept my promise to Mother. Whenever I encountered men who were gravely injured, destitute, or fleeing in hardship, I turned a blind eye to all of them. That one in tattered clothes yet, with extraordinary bearing called Lu Mingwang, was obviously someone not to be touched. I let my younger, illegitimate sister, who came after, pick him up. When Lu Mingwang made his comeback, the first thing he did was kill me. All because I had left him to die back then. That dog of a man, so many people passed by him. Why didn't he kill them all? When I opened my eyes again, I was back in swaddling clothes, seeing the mother I had missed for so many years. I burst out crying with a wah. Mother looked listless, forcing herself to stay alert as she picked me up to soothe me. Given another chance, I clung to Mother even more, sticking to her day and night. It must have been useful because on the night she resolutely drove me back to my own room, I was already 3 years old. Me tender little hands clung desperately to her dress, tears blurring her face in my eyes. Mother, please don't abandon me. Her frail yet warm body embraced me one last time. I am sorry, Yuaner. Mother is tired. I was born on the night the Jiang household was raided, even living once more. I couldn't save grandfather, grandmother, and mother. I hate it. Why wasn't it my mother who got rebirth? Even if she would never give birth to me again. When I encountered Lu Mingwang again, in tattered clothes and on the verge of death, I tossed him into my carriage and took him to a courtyard in the outskirts. Mother, the one who swore never to pick up men, was me in my past life. Yuaner has not broken the oath with you. The maid said Lu Mingwang had woken up and wanted to see me. I came to the side room where he was placed. After Lu Mingwang cleaned up, he was truly handsome. The maids all secretly glanced at him. He dragged his still unrecovered body out of bed to bow to me. Thank you, miss, for saving my life. If I, Lu, ever have a day of success, I will surely repay you, miss. Back then, when Mother gave Father food and a place to stay, and gave him travel money to send him off to join the army. He said the same thing. Thank you, Miss Jung, for the grace of giving me a new life. If I, Song, ever have a day of success, I will surely repay you, miss. He produced letters proving the minister's manor was colluding with foreign enemies, and by imperial decree, led troops to slaughter the entire Jiang family. Grandpa and Grandma raised such a kind and virtuous mother, and even extended a helping hand to my father, whom they'd just met by chance. I don't believe they harbored any treasonous intentions. The reasons behind all this, I will personally investigate. Looking at Lu Mingwang's serious expression, I chuckled softly. Young Master Lu, just focus on recovering. After saying that, I turned and walked out. Lu Mingwang's pair of deep eyes stuck to the hem of my clothes, following me step by step out of the side room. Then, he saw a courtyard full of men with various looks. Renlian in a green robe flicked the bone flute in his hand. Is this the new young master? Quite handsome, but a bit too frail. Zhang Lingshen, carrying a large saber on his back, cupped his fists toward me. Miss Song, my leg is much better now. Starting today, I'll go out to work. Once I've saved up some silver, I'll repay you double for the recent expenses. I nodded slightly. No rush. Little Yang Chan, with a high ponytail, bumped into my leg, holding up a completely misshapen bun, and said with a grin, Sister Song, this is a bun I learned to make with Grandpa Liu. Try it. Thank you, Ah Chan. I took the bun and asked Qing to wrap it in a handkerchief. I just had lunch. How about I take it back to eat later? Naturally, that is good. Yuan Tian, dressed in pink with a strand of loose hair by her forehead, chimed in. Miss Song not only extended a helping hand to us in our time of peril, but also considered Brother Yang's feelings. Truly, her love knows no bounds. Looking at the courtyard full of pretty boys, Lu Mingwang's thoughts faltered for a moment, and he spoke in a hoarse voice. Miss Song, you saved a whole courtyard of men? Not quite. I parted my lips with a smile. I have 9 more courtyards like this one, so what? This sis has plenty of big courtyards. Picking up a few dozen or 100 men to raise is no problem at all. On the way back to the residence, I closed my eyes to rest while Qing took out the bun Young Qian gave and crushed it bit by bit. She worked carefully and only woke me up after half a quarter. Hoer, miss, I found it. It is a piece of hair. Rather than a piece, it was more like a speck, about the size of an ant, obviously deliberately trimmed by someone. The purpose, presumably, was to prevent the person eating it from noticing. Qing wrapped up the bun with a handkerchief and threw it out of the carriage. Miss, Renlian makes flutes from human bones. Zhang Lingshen engages in robbery for a living. Yang Qian boils infants to make porridge. And Yuan Tian rapes young boys. Qing was chosen for me by my mother when she was still alive, and is also my confidant. Thus she knows many secrets. What do you want to ask? Young Master Lu, it seems, has never committed any heinous crimes. I purchased 10 courtyards, named after the 10 heavenly stems, to house the men I picked up. The 10 courtyards were arranged almost identically, but the consciences of the people inside varied from good to bad. The courtyard where Lu Mingwang resided was the most vicious one, the Gui courtyard. His ambitions are too great, yet he has no moral bottom line to restrain him. Sooner or later, he'll turn to evil. Qing, you no longer remember how he beat you half to death, and how he ran a sword through my heart. Just because he holds immense power, he can find any excuse to make things difficult for me, if that is not utterly heinous. What is even, I, the legitimate daughter of a marquise's household, am treated this way? In his eyes, the common people are probably worth less than ants. When I returned to the manor, concubine Xuan stumbled and threw herself before me, wailing miserably. Young miss, my girl is clumsy and offended the marquis. She has been confined for half a year now, and she already knows her mistake. Today is her hairpin ceremony, yet the marquise still won't lift the confinement. How will she meet suitors in the future? I beg young miss to show mercy and persuade the marquis. Jinner's status is lowly. She only hopes to marry into a respectable family. She would never dare compete with you for anything. My half-sister Songjin is 3 years younger than me. I wasn't in a hurry to find a husband anyway. Even without concubine Xuan's reassurance, I wasn't upset. Please get up, concubine Xuan. I'll go try. I didn't go to find father. Instead, I went to Songjin's place first. When I entered the courtyard, Songjin was chiseling stone with heavy grunts. Beside her, a rockery had already taken initial shape. In the cramped courtyard were artfully arranged bonsai, ingeniously designed water features, and the soul-made servant tirelessly polishing the stone fragments Songjin had chiseled off. Songjin's allowance certainly wasn't enough to arrange all these courtyard landscapes. It seemed that during this half-year of confinement, she hadn't been idle at all. Seeing me step in, Songjin stopped her work, tilted her head to look at me, and waited for me to speak first. Neither humble nor arrogant, just as the impression she'd left on me, no joy, no sorrow. Songjin, what do you want to do? She swung the hammer down, striking with a loud clang. As elder sister can see, tending to the courtyard, whiling away the time. I shook my head. I mean, what do you want to do from now on? Songjin looked at me and gave a bitter smile. Elder sister, don't ask me what I want. First ask what I am able to do. I looked down at her from above. Stay confined for no reason until father shows mercy, or come with me and work for me. She shot to her feet with a whoosh and answered, Work for you. I found it amusing. You are not asking what kind of work. She stared straight at me, a rare desire in her eyes. Elder sister, I want to get out. At nightfall, I brought a pot of fine wine into father's study. Moonlight mingled with candlelight fell upon his face, emotion stirring in his eyes. I knew he was once again reminiscing about mother through my face. Composing his expression, he transformed back into a loving father. Yuander, you want that girl Songjin? I nodded in agreement. She is restless, needs to be watched constantly, think things through more carefully in all matters. I will heed father's teachings. Concubine Xuan was once the most favored concubine, and thus gave birth to my second younger sister, Songjin. Unfortunately, the day she gave birth happened to coincide with mother hanging herself. Father abandoned concubine Xuan, who was still at death's door, held my mother's corpse and wept bitterly, summoning all the household physicians and maids in an attempt to revive mother. Concubine Xuan, alone, with one personal maid, struggled to give birth to Songjin, a child unloved by father. Songjin's birthday is the anniversary of my mother's death. The character Jin, in her name, was taken from the meaning of end. Moreover, father blamed concubine Xuan for the elaborate ordeal of childbirth that held him back, preventing him from noticing my mother's abnormality in time. Yet he never mentioned who it was that had the Jiang household executed, making my mother lose her will to live, or who was making love with concubine Xuan 9 months before. Father couldn't hold his liquor, so he didn't like drinking. But today was my mother's death anniversary. He didn't want to stay too sober. I accompanied him for 3 cups, using tea in place of wine, and he got drunk, clutching the jade pendant mother left behind as he fell into a stupor. I quietly got up and surveyed the study. In my previous life, on the 15th anniversary of mother's death, I found a poem, painting penned by Yuan Mao in father's study. What the painting depicted was his hometown. Yuan Mao, one of grandfather's advisors, handed my father the letters proving Minister Zhang's collusion with the enemy, thereby escaping death. After the minister's residence was raided, he also disappeared without a trace. I painstakingly searched for his whereabouts, wanting to ask him where he obtained those treasonous letters. To obtain this painting again, which might lead me to Yuan Mao's hometown to find him, I deliberately waited until today, at the same time and place, and got my father drunk. At the same spot on the bookshelf, I found the familiar scroll, opened it with joy, only to find it was a different painting from my previous life. It has been 18 years since I saw the painting in my previous life, and I couldn't remember many details clearly, so I thought I'd come to look at it again. But I am certain this is absolutely not the same painting as in my previous life. The painting from my previous life depicted the Gobi, yellow sand, and an oasis. But this time, it is layered mountains, misty clouds, and dense forests. Yet the inscribed poem is exactly the same. Where this heart returns is only home. I scanned this hometown painting over and over, wanting to engrave every detail into my mind. After calling a servant to look after my father, I returned to my own courtyard and raced against time to copy that painting from memory. I lay sprawled on the couch, a brush balanced between my nose and lips, staring blankly at the replica painting that was drying. In my previous life, from the moment I got the hometown painting, I was entangled with Lu Mingwang for 2 years, until he stabbed me into this life with a single sword. I wonder what Song Qin was doing when Lu Mingwang killed me. Speaking of which, ever since she married the new Prime Minister Lu Mingwang, it is like she died in the backyard. I haven't heard a single thing about her since. When a woman becomes a wife, that is probably how it goes. The next day, I took Song Jin to the Gui courtyard. After introducing her as my second younger sister, everyone at the Gui courtyard treated her with extra courtesy. I informed everyone at the Gui courtyard that from now on, Song Jin would manage the courtyard on my behalf, and they could consult her for any matters. I also told Song Jin that all expenses and income of the courtyard must be recorded down to the last detail. Seeing that I took Song Jin out, but returned to the residence alone, concubine Xuan started embroidering handkerchiefs and making fish soup for me every few days. Her eyes were full of cautious probing. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Aunt Xuan, I'll have second sister come back to the residence tomorrow. Whatever concerns you have, just ask her yourself. Song Jin returned to the residence for half a day, had lunch with concubine Xuan, then went back to the Gui courtyard. Concubine Xuan still wore that gloomy look of puzzlement. I teased her. Aunt Xuan, didn't you get any answers from second sister? Concubine Xuan waved her handkerchief and complained. That girl, not a single complete sentence from her mouth. She just said she is doing fine, that she is happy, and told me not to ask too much, saying knowing too much wouldn't do me any good. Raised this little girl for nothing. Her mouth was full of complaints, but her face was full of smiles. Miss, thank you. As long as Jinner can do what she likes, that is good enough. Whether she marries or not isn't that important. Half a month later, I asked Song Jin about her experience managing the courtyard. She pushed out the ledger and spoke at length. Everything in perfect order, every matter handled meticulously. But what I wanted to see was more than just this. Song Jin, how are the people in the courtyard? She looked up at me, my scrutinizing gaze reflected in her eyes. She then spoke her mind directly. Zhang Lingshen, a brute of a man, hands me 5 taels of silver every 10 days, truly suspicious. For common folk, earning even 1 tael of silver a month is already rare. Ren Lian likes to paint. I've seen his paintings. They give off an inexplicable sense of oppression, also suspicious. Yang Qian, despite his young age, has impure intentions. Song Jin unconsciously pulled her chair closer, furrowed her brows, and continued. When I was calculating the food expenses for the courtyard, I discovered something strange. There was a discrepancy between the meat purchased and what we consumed, so I had the Shadow Guard's elder sister left behind investigate, and only then discovered that Yang Qian had been torturing and killing cats, chopping them up and mixing them into the meat, making buns and wontons for us to eat. At this point, Song Jin Dry heaved a few times. No wonder the informant from Gui Courtyard reported that Song Jin hadn't been eating at Gui Courtyard for several days now. And that Yuan Tian, he originally thought he liked seducing young girls, but who knew he was seducing young boys instead. Those young boys come from poor families, only 11 or 12 years old, with no ability to judge people whatsoever, yet they were tricked into having relations with him. After saying this, she looked at me with an inscrutable gaze. Just what kind of people did you find? I smiled and answered with a question instead. What about Lu Mingwang? What do you think of him? In the previous life, Song Jin picked up Lu Mingwang and hid him away to nurse his wounds. After Lu Mingwang became prime minister, he didn't forget her kindness and granted her the position of legitimate wife. Given Song Jin's personality, for her to marry him, the two of them must have had genuine feelings. His character seems fine, or perhaps I am just too dull-eyed to tell otherwise. My fingertips lightly tapped the neatly written account book. Aunt Xuan hopes you'll marry into an ordinary family as a legitimate wife. What do you think of him? If you are agreeable, I'll play matchmaker for you too. Song Jin blinked her eyes and said, Elder sister, half a month ago you asked me what I wanted to do. Back then I thought, find someone who favors me, like how father treated his first wife, give birth to a child who is deeply loved, like elder sister. A hope I had never seen before emerged in her eyes. If you ask me now what I want to do, then I want to see all the ways of the world, taste every flavor of life. I want to manage accounts, to procure goods, to learn calligraphy and painting, to travel down to Jiangnan, to wield a long spear, to be a merchant. I want to try everything. I nodded with satisfaction, then handed over all 9 courtyards, Jia, Yi, Bing, Ding, Wu, Ji, Zheng, Xin, and Ren, for her to manage. After just 3 days, she said to me with dark circles under her eyes, Elder sister, I want to rest. After Song Jin adapted to her fulfilling days, I set off for Shu to find Yuan Mao's hometown. Before parting, I reminded her, all 10 courtyards are inhabited by people who received my favor in times of crisis. You are my younger sister, and also the steward of the courtyards. Some of them have flawed characters, but each has their own specialty. If you wish to learn a skill or two, they should be happy to teach you. Song Jin suddenly understood, and immediately took a down on his luck scholar from Courtyard A as her teacher. Thinking of her current situation, she hesitated and said, Elder sister, I don't seem to have much free time anymore. Could you assign a steward to assist me? I knocked on her head. If you want to slack off, train your own helpers. Recognizing and employing people is also part of learning. After giving my instructions, Qiying and I changed into men's clothing and set off lightly. We traveled leisurely, covering no more than 100 li per Dalton Yi. When we encountered down on their luck but talented men, we would treat their injuries, give them travel money and letters of introduction, sending them to the capital to find Song Jin. This way, we were delayed even more. After picking up 3 men and sending them to the capital, Song Jin wrote me a letter. Thank you for elder sister's concern, hoping I'd work hard managing the courtyards. Even while traveling, you don't forget to add more challenges for your little sister. Based on the 3 letters of introduction and where I picked up the men, she calculated my travel direction and pace, and this letter arrived precisely at the inn where I was staying. It seems her learning has been quite effective. I wrote back to her. Want to pick up. Love to pick up. Will keep picking up. The Shu region has many mountains and waters. Its scenery vastly different from the capital. Qiying and I trekked over mountains and ridges, comparing the copied map of Yuan Mao's hometown, while admiring the unique scenery and culture. When the season of orioles singing in green willows and egrets soaring into the blue sky arrived, we stepped into a village both unfamiliar and familiar. Standing at the village entrance, I held the replicated hometown map and compared it with the scenery before us. Qiying and I exclaimed in unison, "It is so similar, too similar." Qiying, let's go into the village and ask around about Yuan Mao. Qiying was Qiying's alias when disguised as a man. As for me, I reversed my name Song Liyuan and called myself Li Songyuan. Who does the young lady wish to inquire about? An abrupt voice sounded from behind. Qiying and I turned around to see a man in a blue cloth shirt carrying a bamboo basket on his back, emanating the fresh scent of medicinal herbs. The 2 of us were startled. This man had sunken eye sockets with everted eyelids. Within both eye sockets was pinkish, white flesh instead of eyeballs. This man had no eyes, which frightened Qiying. I, however, was shocked by his face. I had seen him before, in my previous life, on a wanted poster displayed in Father's study. In my previous life he had eyes, yet was equally terrifying. One eye bearing 2 pupils, known as double pupils, rumored to be able to glimpse heaven's secrets. Father said he was a rogue Maoshan Taoist priest who loved using living people as sacrifices when practicing his arts. The people suffered greatly from him, so His Majesty ordered Father to apprehend and execute him on the spot. In this life, he seemed to be a blind, impoverished village doctor. Queen cleared her throat and said in a deliberately deep voice, "We are men. It is just that our voices are a bit soft." The village doctor apologized in the direction of the voice. "Sorry, young master. I have eyes but no pupils. I cannot see your face, which is why I addressed you wrongly." I tilted my head slightly to look at him. "Your eyes," he smiled calmly. "My name is Liu Shan. I was born without eyes. Did I frighten you too, young masters?" Even when I was still in the capital, I had noticed that this life had given rise to many unexpected changes. I had assumed it was because my temperament changed after my rebirth, and my fondness for picking up men had affected the course of many events in the capital. But Liu Shan's double pupils had become congenital blindness. How could I, who wasn't even born at that time, have disturbed the fate of a baby born far away in Shu? Yuan Mao, whose whereabouts were unknown, and Liu Shan, who seemed like a completely different person. These made me have to stop and rest in this Liu family village, nestled among the overlapping mountains. There was no inn in the village. Liu Shan warmly invited us to stay at his home. I didn't refuse and casually paid him half a tael of silver. He accepted it with a blush. "My wife is pregnant, and I don't have much ability to earn money, so I won't be polite with you, young master." At night, Qing tidied up the bed for me. Just as we were about to sleep in our clothes, a soft knock sounded. Shadow Guard Xiao stood sideways outside the window and said quietly, "Miss, there is someone in the shadows. Their martial arts are quite formidable. For now, they don't seem to intend to make a move on us." I instructed, "Keep an eye on them if you can. Whatever you do, don't alert the enemy." Liu Shan took the silver, and the next day eagerly wanted to take me to find someone. "Young master, who was it you wanted to find?" Remembering the Shadow Guard's words from last night, I chuckled softly. "Young master Lu misheard. We simply wish to enjoy the pleasures of nature." Qing and I chatted with the villagers, talking about household matters, secretly searching for Yuan Mao's whereabouts. We found out there were 3 Yuan families in the village, but none had a man aged 37. I wasn't annoyed either, and continued to get along famously with the villagers. Amidst the cicadas' chirping, Liu Shan's wife's water broke. Liu Shan took the silver to fetch a midwife, pacing anxiously outside the room, while his parents, nearly 50 years old, also eagerly awaited their grandchild. Just then, a shadow guard came to report that the people in hiding had made their move, chasing after a man. According to them, the man was acting crazy, shouting only, "You've got the wrong person. It is not me. I am not." The shadow guard asked me, "Miss, do you have any orders?" "Save him, hurry." I grabbed Qing and mounted the horse, galloping straight out of the village. When we arrived, my dozen-plus shadow guards were already locked in combat with the other side, and Guard Xiao was holding a disheveled man whose fate was uncertain. However, there was an obscure uncertainty in the shadow guard's eyes that I couldn't see through. After driving everyone off, Guard Xiao threw the man before me, hesitating to speak. "No need to hold back, speak," Guard Xiao said gravely. "Miss, judging by their moves, the other side are people from the Marquise's mansion. In the Marquise's manor, only Father and I can use the shadow guards trained under unified command. No wonder my shadow guards held back their killing moves at every turn. You should know the identity of the person behind them. Those who wish to seek them out, or those who wish to return to the capital, leave today." For a long while, not a single shadow guard moved. It wasn't in vain that all these years, I gave them triple the monthly wages on top of their regular stipend from the Marquise's manor. Father, why do you want to kill Yuan Mao? It really makes one wonder. Shadow Guard Xiao splashed a pot of cold water to wake the disheveled man. After a bout of screaming and yelling, he stared blankly around. Yuan Mao, you were quite hard to find. He waved his hands in panic. I am not him. Not him. I don't know the person you are talking about. I looked at him with a sinister gaze. Whether you are or not, we'll know once you meet the Marquis of Changping. Set off, back to the capital. The shadow guards kept Yuan Mao with them, while Kui Ying and I returned to the village to bid farewell to Liu Shan. After just one day apart, the Liu household was lifeless. The eerie atmosphere so oppressive it was suffocating. Kui Ying and I had just entered when an elder walked in behind us, his temples graying, wearing a grayish-brown Taoist robe, holding a fly whisk. A sharp glint flashed in his murky eyes. I heard the Liu family's newborn has double pupils, unwelcome by all. Why not let this old one raise him? Liu Shan gave birth to a double-pupiled child. At first, I suspected Liu Shan was deceiving me about being born without eyes. But after staying in the village for over 3 months, the villagers all said his fate was bitter. At such a young age, heaven had stripped away his sight. The vanished double pupils now appeared on Liu Shan's son. And the Liu family woman held a kitchen knife, half her body soaked in blood, glaring at the old Taoist priest with ferocious eyes. You want to take my child away too? After chanting, "Blessed be the infinite celestial Lord," the old Taoist priest fled. Liu Shan seemed to have his soul drained away, weakly pressing down on his wife's trembling arms. As it happened, the Liu family woman had given birth to a child with double pupils. The midwife, trembling, handed the baby to the in-laws and fled in a hurry, paying no mind to the woman still bleeding. Liu Shan personally went in to care for his wife, wiping and washing her body. When he finished and went to see his son, his mother was evasive, his father resentful. The 2 elders had hidden it from the young couple and thrown the child into the back mountain to feed the wolves. Double pupils were considered inauspicious, would bring disaster. The villagers couldn't avoid them fast enough. After the Liu family woman woke, she went mad with fury, propping up her weak body to slaughter her in-laws. Liu Shan, with his empty eye sockets, called out indifferently, "Father, mother, a Yan?" Only when he touched the 2 breathless corpses and his wife, wet and sticky, did Liu Shan realize everything was beyond saving. After changing the Liu family wife into clean clothes, Liu Shan also tucked in the blanket corners for his unconscious wife. I let out a soft sigh. What do you plan to do? Liu Shan looked at his wife with a complicated expression. Naturally, report to the authorities. A daughter, in-law killing her parents. In-law warrants the death penalty. Liu Shan reached out with both hands, made a round in the room, feeling this, weighing that, then stood straight before me. After I leave, please trouble young master to tell Yan to leave. I, Liu Shan, and the Liu family owe her. Liu Shan was imprisoned and would be executed in a few days. The charge was killing his parents. I sent the shadow guards to search the back mountain for that double-pupiled child, but found nothing. After Yang Yan woke up upon learning that Liu Shan had taken the blame for her, she said viciously, "My child for 3 lives of his Liu family, not a loss." She carried her bundle, kowtowed 3 times toward the direction of the government office, then left without looking back. On the tamped earth where she had knelt, murky tears remained. Liu Shan's parents couldn't tolerate the double-pupiled child at all. So how did Liu Shan in the previous life grow up smoothly, and even do so many filthy deeds? An old face with an unkind appearance barged into my memories. I hurriedly called the shadow guard. "Old Xiao, quickly catch that Taoist priest, and bring him back." The old Taoist was found, but things were a bit tricky. Shadow guards protected me and Kui Ying, while on the opposite side, an equally imposing group of people protected the old Taoist. After a long standoff, The other side spoke first. We've already given Yuan Mao to the young lady. Today, this Taoist priest must be taken away by us. Please understand, young lady, if we return empty-handed, it'll be hard to explain to the master. I caught the hidden meaning in his words. In father's eyes, this old Taoist is more important than Yuan Mao. The man furrowed his brows and turned his head away sharply. Young lady, please stop making things difficult for us. Easy enough. I paced with my hands tucked in my sleeves. I never intended to take the old Taoist away. I just want to ask him a few questions. Hand him over to me, and in half a shikan, I'll return him to you in one piece. My father's shadow guard pondered for a moment, and gripped the long sword in his hand tighter. Shadow guard Shao pointed his sword tip straight at the other side, showing no fear. Fine. The old Taoist, who had been stroking his beard and yawning, was pushed forward by my father's shadow guards. His legs suddenly went stiff, and he trembled, unwilling to move. Young lady, we'll give you the person, but may Miss Qiying stay seated here for a while. Otherwise, this subordinate won't feel at ease. Shadow guard Shao grabbed the old Taoist by the back of his collar and dragged him into the woods. I followed behind the two of them. My father's shadow guards surrounded Qiying, staring straight ahead at her until her scalp went numb, and she felt like she was sitting on pins and needles. In the dense forest, Shadow Guard Shao seized the old Taoist's arms while I slowly approached him. Old Taoist, what do you want the double-pupiled child for? The old Taoist nonchalantly started whistling, completely ignoring me. I drew the sword from Shao the Dark Guard's hand and placed it against the Taoist priest's neck. The Taoist priest's eyes were panicked, his words incoherent. Yeah, you said you'd let me go back, in one piece. I lightly drew the sword, leaving a red mark on the Taoist priest's neck. Don't forget you still have someone in their hands. I said nothing, only increasing the pressure in my hand. The old Taoist was numb with pain, yet didn't dare move an inch. A streak of crimson dripped from the sword tip onto the old Taoist's boots. He finally said, drained of strength, "Stop, I'll talk. I'll tell you everything." The old Taoist priest was a rogue Maoshan. Maoshan Taoists have always had a good reputation. Some who took up the practice midway without receiving orthodox Maoshan training, yet committed misdeeds under the Maoshan banner. These are known as rogue Maoshan. The old Taoist had absorbed all manner of filth, learning only arts that defied heaven and harmed the innocent. According to him, a double-pupiled child was a natural-born rogue Maoshan. They could peer into heavenly principles above and probe ghostly spirits below, and wielding arts that harmed others for personal gain came even more naturally to them. 20 years ago, he had divined that a double-pupiled child would be born here and hold up in Liu family village for 3 years, with nothing to show for it. Not long ago, the divination signs foretelling the arrival of a double-pupiled child appeared again. He rushed impatiently to Liu family village, but was a step too late. The double-pupiled child had already been abandoned to the wolves. Unwilling to give up, he searched all over the back mountain, until he was caught by my father's dark guards. You really didn't find the double-pupiled child? The old Taoist touched his simply bandaged neck still oozing blood, and waved his hand dismissively. Of course it is true. I can barely protect myself. Where could I possibly hide that infant? He even let out a chuckle. You might want him dead, but I couldn't wish more for him to live, so he can inherit my... Shadow Guard Shao shot him a cutting glare, and the old Taoist fell silent. I lightly bit my knuckle, and after pondering for a moment asked him, "Do you know of the rebirth technique?" The old Taoist looked shocked. How do you know? He rarely turned serious. I do. That is a technique only those with double pupils can perform. I am just an ordinary mortal, and despite dedicating half my life to it, I haven't made an inch of progress. I pressed further. How is it performed? The old Taoist stroked his beard with a smug look. To put it long, you two aren't practitioners of the arts, so you wouldn't understand the principles. To put it short, it takes 1,000 living people as sacrifice to send one person back to rebirth. I exchanged the old Taoist to get Kuiying back. The moment he fell into the other side's shadow guard's hands, the old Taoist pointed at his cloth, wrapped neck and wailed, "Fellow Taoists, that young lady didn't keep her promise and nearly sent this old man to his death." A shadow guard kicked him. "Cut the crap. As long as you are still breathing, that is enough. Now hurry up and come with us back to the capital." They left with the old Taoist, and Shadow Guard Xiao asked me, "Miss, shall we also bring Yuan Mao back to the capital?" I watched the old Taoist's departing figure and waved my hand. "Bring Yuan Mao over. We're going back to Liu family village." Our group escorted Yuan Mao in a grand procession into Liu family village. When we pressed Yuan Mao into the first household surnamed Yuan, he rolled his eyes and shook his head, playing crazy and acting dumb. When entering the second Yuan household, he dragged half a leg and hung his head, playing dead. When entering the last Yuan household, he stopped acting crazy or making a fuss, expressionless and silent. This is the place. An old man with a cane and an old woman tottered over tremblingly, their faces full of disbelief. "You are Maoer?" Yuan Mao stiffened his body, remaining expressionless, letting the two elders throw themselves at him and weep bitterly. I leaned against the doorframe, enjoying this show, endlessly patient, until the old woman choked up so much she couldn't catch her breath, her body going limp. Yuan Mao hurriedly caught her, crying out in alarm, "Mother." He suddenly covered his mouth, looking at me in panic. Only then did I slowly approach him. "Yuan Mao, you should know, falling into my hands is far better than falling into my father's. What matter is there that we can't sit down and discuss in detail?" Yuan Mao was unwilling to mention the matter of the former minister's mansion's treasonous letters for now, and I wasn't annoyed either, picking easier topics to ask about. Yuan Mao was not born to his parents. Years ago, the two elders were traveling through the desert with a merchant caravan when they followed faint cries from beneath the yellow sand, and found Yuan Mao, raising him ever since. This explains why Yuan Mao's hometown was beyond the frontier in his previous life, yet in Shu region in this life. What about Yuan Mao's birth parents? I took out the frontier map and asked the elderly couple where they had found Yuan Mao. The old couple's eyes were dim with age, and after struggling to make it out, they pointed to the same spot. I am very familiar with this place. Years ago, my father defeated the Wujiang tribe here, keeping Daxia's border secure for over 20 years. If I remember correctly, this place should be called Black Gold City. No. Wait. Black Gold City is a major frontier town with over 2,000 residents. How could it have no marking on the map? I hurriedly asked the elderly couple, "What is this place called?" The two of them thought for a moment, then started chatting back and forth. "A place name, there doesn't seem to be one. That is the nearest oasis after leaving the frontier, where caravans rest and collect water. Come to think of it, it is strange. Such a large oasis? Why does no one settle there? 1,000 living people as sacrifice. In exchange for one person's rebirth, 2,000 residents of Black Gold City vanished without a trace. Besides me, there is another person who experienced rebirth. The Liu family's house was already empty. In the following days, Kuiying and I stayed at Yuan Mao's home. Some time ago, to build good relations with the three Yuan, surnamed families, Kuiying and I would visit Yuan Mao's parents every few days to show our care. Plus, in the elderly couple's eyes, I was the one who brought back their son who'd been missing for years. They were extremely grateful to me, making sure to give us the meat and eggs first every day, even though Yuan Mao's face was full of resentment, puffing his cheeks as he chewed his food. One day, Yuan Mao said, "Miss Song, I've told you everything I can. Please leave." 3 days later, Yuan Mao said, "Miss Song, your wings are not yet fully grown. Even if I reveal the true mastermind, you won't have the power to bring them to justice." 10 days later, Yuan Mao said, "Miss Song, once you've settled everything, I will testify for you." I clapped my hands in delight. That is exactly what I've been waiting to hear. QIing pack up. We're returning to the capital, Old Shao, gather everyone. For this trip, I brought 17 shadow guards, the 13 best fighters aside from Shadow Guard Shao. I left them all with Yuan Mao. I patted his shoulder. Wash your neck clean and wait for me to drag you along to hell with me. Until then, stay alive. After bidding farewell to the Yuan family, I swung onto my horse, just about to crack the whip. Yuan Mao chased out from the house, shouting breathlessly, "Miss Song, before you stands an insurmountable mountain. Then I'll flatten it. Beyond the mountain lies an even more treacherous abyss. Then I'll fill it up." I rode through the forest, my fighting spirit soaring. As they say, what is full will wane. Suddenly, I received an urgent letter from Song Qin. Father is furious. Elder sister, save me. When I rushed back to the Marquise's residence without a moment's rest, I saw concubine Xuan kneeling in front of father's courtyard. Her hairpins were in complete disarray, and her knees were already stained red. When I had Qing help her up, her eyes gleamed and she clutched my leg tightly. "Miss, please." I softly agreed, and she fainted. Entering the courtyard, the shadow guards who had been waiting led me to see father. In the dark chamber, Song Qin's hands and feet were all bound by iron chains, her plain dress stained with streaks of blood. She lowered her head and spoke softly. "Father, I truly don't know his whereabouts." The Marquise of Changping, humble, gentle, pure as the moon and refreshing as the breeze, rested his hand on the book, never raising his eyes, only saying, "Continue." The executioner raised his whip, and I hurriedly shouted, "Stop!" The whip struck Song Qin harshly, adding another streak of blood. I rushed before father, pressed both hands on the book, and bit out 2 words, "Father." He waved his hand, the executioner bowed to him, and withdrew. He raised his gentle eyes to look at me, showing concern like an ordinary father would. "Your Honor, you went out to have fun for a few days. Did you enjoy yourself?" I held back my indignation and questioned him. "Father, what wrong did second sister commit that you would resort to torture? Her intentions are impure, harboring that treacherous villain Lu Mingwang. But Lu Mingwang was placed in the side residence by me, and Song Qin was also arranged by me to go there." He was startled and slammed the table as he rose. "You clearly knew that in your past life, Song Qin colluded with Lu Mingwang and brought you to your death, yet you still allowed those two to meet and interact. The one who killed me in my past life was Lu Mingwang. Song Qin merely had the grace of sheltering him," I said with anger laced with laughter, pulling up the corners of my mouth as I looked at him. "Father, how do you know about matters from my past life?" I leaned my body forward, closing in on him. 2,000 citizens died in Haijin City. The other person who underwent rebirth. That is you, isn't it? He sank deeply back into his chair, losing much of his strength. "Your Honor, I helped you achieve rebirth, hoping you would discern good from evil and slay your enemies with your own hands. But you instead went to shelter Lu Mingwang, nurture Song Qin." He patted the book he had been flipping through earlier, and only then did I see it was Song Qin's handwriting, recording what she had learned recently. "I gave you the finest shadow guard, hoping you would handle matters advantageously, fearing no danger. Yet you snatched Yuan Mao from my hands, and even tried to detain Priest Wang." I opened my mouth to argue, but a large hand gently rested on the top of my head. "Your Honor has both courage and wit, with impressive methods. As your father, I am most pleased." Carrying Song Qin on my back out of the secret chamber, I said with frustrated disappointment, "Your tongue is so clever, yet you didn't know to speak up in your defense, and just took the whipping?" A faint, barely perceptible soft chuckle reached my ears. "Elder sister, he doesn't believe me." After summoning the household physician to treat Song Qin, concubine Xuan forced herself to sit up, her gaze lingering lovingly on her daughter for a moment, before she couldn't bear it, and wiped away tears. There was no more use for me after that. So I quietly stepped out and closed the door behind me, recalling father's words in the dark room. Yuaner, don't resent father. Regarding the Jiang Manor incident, father had no choice. To protect you and your mother, father has already exhausted every means. Your mother understands. No matter how unwilling she is, she still stays by my side. This is the proof. If I didn't know about the Haijin City incident, didn't know he also went through a rebirth, I probably would have believed this speech. But I don't believe it. I don't believe anyone forced him to slaughter all 2,000 innocent people of Haijin City. Was it truly to help me undergo rebirth? Or was he unwilling to spare Yuan Mao and his parents who held leverage over him? So he simply massacred the city. Even after living again, he still killed Grandpa and Grandma, and indirectly caused Mother's death. In his heart, I matter, and Mother matters too. But power matters, and status matters even more. Yuan Mao hinted at things, and father gave further pointers. I roughly glimpsed who the colossal figure behind father is. The former Crown Prince Rang, bearing the hope of benevolence and virtue, possessing the makings of a monarch. Grandpa was his teacher. Grandma was his maternal aunt. The Jiang family was undoubtedly close retainers of the Crown Prince. Minister Jiang's colluding with the enemy was rumored to be ordered by Crown Prince Rang. So the late emperor deposed the Crown Prince and established Prince Chang instead. The current emperor, the great chasm behind the tall mountain. My greatest enemy is the emperor. Only after Song Qin recovered from her injuries did I learn the details of recent events. Renlian sold a calligraphy painting for a high price, making Zhang Lingshen green with envy, who then cornered Lian in a dark alley on a rainy night. The next day, Zhang Lingshan had not returned, and Renlian had newly obtained a bone flute. Yuan Tian had lusted after Lian for a long time. He sought aphrodisiacs from the pleasure quarters, and secretly slipped them into Lian's food, ravishing him to death. Yang Qian stumbled upon the scene, but Tian's lust was still raging. He seized Qian, intending to continue. Qian feigned compliance. When Tian was at the peak of his arousal, he pierced his throat with a hairpin. Qian cooked both Lian and Tian and served them to Lu Mingwang. Lu was delighted and accepted it. But he happened to pick up a hip bone with tendons and flesh still attached, savory aroma wafting about, the same as what he himself had eaten. Lu was furious and killed Qian right there in the courtyard. How spectacular Gui Court had truly become a court of ghosts. Lu Mingwang, worthy indeed of being the man who became prime minister in 3 years in his past life, became the last person left alive in Gui Court. It is just a pity he caught wind of things and fled before my father could lead men into Gui Court. Song Qin came to clean up the mess at Gui Court, but unfortunately ran into father, who assumed she had secretly sheltered Lu Mingwang, just like in the past life, and had tipped him off to let him escape. To prevent the tragedy of my miserable death at Lu Mingwang's hands in the past life from repeating, father interrogated Song Qin, wanting to personally deal with Lu Mingwang once and for all. Before Song Qin was imprisoned, she had a trusted aide send an urgent message to me, asking me to return and save her. Now with Aunt Xuan personally caring for her, Song Qin has recovered remarkably fast, regaining her former radiant spirit. Song Jin, if I hadn't sent you out of the manor to engage in trade, you wouldn't have suffered this undeserved calamity. Do you regret it? Her eyes shone bright, and she said resolutely, the innocent still suffer calamity. I should walk through this world properly to gain the ability to protect myself. I left again, this time after handing most of the money and manpower to Song Jin, and telling father I wished to roam freely among mountains and rivers. I left with only Qiying, Xiao the Shadow Guard, and a dozen trusted followers. Yellow sand filled the sky at the borderlands, yet couldn't obscure the pure kindness in people's hearts. Drinking merrily with the herders, having milk and eating meat, those were truly joyful days. Yuan Mao had fled to the desert with his parents, and often engaged me in frank discussions, arguing until we were red in the face. I refuted each point, not yielding in the slightest. After we'd had our fill, he sighed deeply. You are so much like Lord Jiang. But I'd never met grandfather. He and grandmother died before I was born. Realizing his slip of the tongue, he said apologetically, "I am sorry. It was I who brought about his death." When the Northern Yi came to raid, my shadow guards gathered herders of our dynasty and trained them into a makeshift home guard that routed the invaders many times. The home guard grew stronger by the day, becoming famous among the Yi tribes, who eventually amassed a great army and surrounded us in the desert. When water and provisions were exhausted, suddenly a strange army attacked and relieved my plight. The young man at the front cut an elegant figure, possessing talent as if descended from heaven. With just one glance I knew, he was the one I had been waiting for all along. I picked up another man again. He said his name is Li Xingsha. He is very different from other men. He saved me when I was helpless and alone. Technically speaking, he did me a favor, so it should be said that he picked me up. We fell in love at first sight. He said his army couldn't conveniently enter the capital, so he came back to my hometown alone with me. I openly brought him into the Marquise's manor and confessed to my father, I want to marry him. My father used every trick in the book, testing his literary talent and examining his martial prowess. All were top-notch. It is just a pity. His family background is lacking, merely an orphan from the desert. My father made the final call, approved and have him marry into our family. Having left the capital for over 3 years, Song Jin became renowned as a woman. When people discussed her, they didn't talk about her looks or family background, nor debate her virtue or propriety, only her counsel and teachings. She got to experience all kinds of lives as she wished, and finally chose the path she loved most. I was happy for her, yet she worried for me. "Are you really going to marry and wear yourself down?" I said nothing, and on my wedding night, I led her into my husband's bridal chamber. She refused profusely. "Elder sister, I've already said, I don't hope to win someone's heart. I only wish to follow where my heart leads. Besides, that is the person elder sister likes. There is no way I would compete." I scolded her. "You've studied with the most outstanding person in the courtyard for over 3 years, and you still think that in front of a man, your only skill is pleasing him with your looks." She was deeply remorseful. I was foolish. The bridal chamber didn't rest all night. The 3 of us discussed until dawn. The day after the grand wedding, red lanterns still hung high in the mansion. The new Prime Minister Lu Mingwang proposed to my father, seeking to marry the Marquise's daughter. My father pushed Song Jin out without hesitation. Song Jin filed a complaint against father, accusing him of abusing his daughter. Every word was written in tears of blood, with the whip scars on her back, and the testimony of the Marquis mansion servants as evidence. Even though she had quite a reputation in the capital, she only managed to sever the father-daughter relationship and move to a separate residence with concubine Xuan. Moving a mountain is truly difficult, but she seemed quite happy. When she came to see me off, she was completely at ease, relaxed and carefree. She only wondered, "Elder sister, you just came back, and you are leaving again." Lu Mingwang pestered me relentlessly, insisting on marrying me. He even sought His Majesty's decree, and said he didn't mind me bringing Li Xingsha into the Prime Minister's residence together. Apart from those few days when I first picked him up, I had little interaction with him. The tender affection he spoke of, I couldn't believe a single word. Who knows what he wants by marrying me into his residence? However, he and my father, one being the emperor's new favorite, the other, the old flame, have thoroughly made enemies of each other. I am quite happy to watch this good show, unable to stay close in the capital to watch in detail. How vexing. Li Xingsha came down to urge me. Behind him, QIing, Xiao the Shadow Guard and the others, along with the Marquis Mansion's servants, and their families who testified for Song Jin, were all ready to depart. Song Jin was reluctant to part. "Elder sister, awaiting your return." The snow beyond the frontier piled up cliff after cliff. In the capital, the Marquis of Changping and Prime Minister Lu traded open jabs and covert blows, going back and forth many times. My father had once tried to hunt down Lu Mingwang, so he showed no mercy when dealing with my father. Perhaps old flames mostly can't compete with new loves. My father fell behind, pressured step by step by Lu Mingwang, and was stripped of his title. Meanwhile, Li Xingsha and I holed up in the earthen house, watching martial drills and troop training. The northern barbarians frequently harassed us. The county magistrate reported to the court multiple times, yet reinforcements never came. The county magistrate sighed. Trivial matters like dust and dew. The emperor has no time to attend to them. I retorted, the northern barbarians sending troops to surround my home guard, is that also a trivial matter? After a pause, I questioned suspiciously, did you even report that they sent troops? The court doesn't care about this either? The county magistrate said nothing, only sighing and lamenting endlessly. More and more herders joined us. Li Xingsha also taught me military formations and tactics. My home guard grew stronger day by day and had become a force to be reckoned with. The sandstorms were no longer so bitingly cold. Li Xingsha and I led the home guard northward, reaching the barbarian territory. The daughter of the Marquis of Changping and her husband, leading herders in a spontaneous counterattack against the northern barbarians. When this news reached the capital, the whole city was shaken. The foreign enemy that Minister Jiang had once colluded with was precisely the northern barbarians. Now his granddaughter had personally gone to fight against the northern barbarians. The emperor seemed to recall how my father had killed his own father-in-law with his own hands, helping him bring down the former crown prince Rang, and restored my father's title. When I first set foot in barbarian territory, people in the capital said I was an ant trying to shake a tree, overestimating my own strength. After all, the frontier is cold and harsh, and people raised there could hardly amount to anything great. When I conquered 3 cities of the northern barbarians, the emperor sent some provisions, saying a herdsman turned general. How would he make a living? So here is grain for you. He also sent someone, a newly appointed minor general, titled Protector of Home General, exactly the same as my army's name, convenient for taking over the troops. What a pity, the Protector of Home General couldn't adjust to the climate in the first month, lost his appetite, and withered away considerably. In the second month, he caught a cold and was bedridden. In the third month, his throat ached and he couldn't speak. The emperor summoned him back with suppressed anger and questioned him thoroughly. The Protector of Home General said that Li Xingsha and I treated him with great respect, and the Protector of Home Army followed his commands. Then we lost 2 cities. As for returning to the capital, it was indeed because he couldn't endure the cold hardship of the northern frontier. If he stayed any longer, he might die for his country. The emperor gave him a furious scolding, then, while in the capital, bestowed upon Li Xingsha of the northern frontier the title Guardian of the North General. My army was also renamed Guardian of the North Army. This name is much more impressive, if it weren't to dispel the emperor's suspicions and show that I only intended to protect my homeland. I would have wanted a more elegant name long ago. I was clearly the one who gathered the herdsmen to form this army. So why were you made the general? I snatched the sweet potato Li Xingsha had just roasted, blowing on it while taking an angry bite. He patted my head and said dotingly, I contribute both manpower and effort. How can my wife be so stingy? He devoted himself to every aspect of army training and personally led the conquest of each city. The Northern Guard Army was orderly, advancing unstoppably, and knew when to advance and retreat appropriately. This indeed couldn't be achieved by just me and the herders. Li Xingsha broke up his army and stuffed them one by one into the Northern Guard Army. Well, I am the one spending money on grain and buying horses. I didn't hold back and snatched another sweet potato from him. He knew something about warfare, and I had some wealth in gold and silver. We were quite the match. After the Home Guard generals returned to the capital, the emperor didn't send anyone else to take over my army. Throughout the court and realm, all the renowned generals, except my father, had ties with the former crown prince, and the emperor didn't want to use them. As for my father, he was even more unusable. Who knew what kind of surprise we father and daughter could cook up for him at the frontier? The emperor summoned Li Xingsha back to the capital. But he said, "Chancellor Lukovit's my wife. I absolutely dare not return." The emperor bestowed a marriage upon Lu Mingwang, had him quickly complete the wedding, and then summoned Li Xingsha again. The imperial edict and Song Qin's letter arrived almost simultaneously. Song Qin's letter had only 2 words, "Don't return." So Li Xingsha and I tossed the edict aside, packed up, and went to conquer another city. Soon after, a new edict arrived, telling Li Xingsha not to worry and to crush the barbarians. Lu Mingwang got dead drunk on his wedding night, crying out my name, and word spread throughout the capital. Lu Mingwang, having painstakingly climbed to that position, how could he allow Li Xingsha to return to the capital and compete with him? The emperor was furious at Lu Mingwang for causing trouble, so Lu Mingwang offered the emperor a scheme. A letter came from the capital. The Marquis of Changping was critically ill. I hurried back to the capital, leaving Li Xingsha to guard the army. The gates of the Marquis's manor were tightly shut, yet couldn't conceal the deathly stillness within. Most of father's concubines had been sent away by Song Jin through various means. Such a grand manor, yet only father with his weary face, and 2 or 3 trusted aides remained. The moment Qi Ying and I stepped into the courtyard, the gate was shut behind us, and orderly, heavy footsteps sounded from outside. I'd heard this sound many times. It was the army. By His Majesty's oral decree, the Marquis is gravely ill. The young madam shall stay in the manor to keep him company. I looked at father. Though he no longer had his former glory, there wasn't the slightest sign of illness. He rarely smiled, but now he did, joining me for dinner. The kitchen had lost more than half its staff, yet he personally cooked 2 bowls of sour pulp noodles. I learned this in the northern frontier when I was young. You must have had quite a lot during your years there. Try it. See how mine differs. Before I could speak, he continued on his own. Back when I returned to the capital after being made a general, I went to see your mother and made her a bowl of noodles like this. She said it was refreshing to the heart and absolutely delicious. I was silent for a long while before speaking. Father, it is February now. The bitter winter hasn't left. Warm spring hasn't arrived. How can we even speak of scorching summer? He just paused briefly, then continued eating the noodles by himself, wolfing them down so cold that he shivered and coughed non-stop. I patted his back for him, and after he stopped coughing, I placed both hands on his shoulders. Father, the great Marquis of Changping, confined to his own estate. Are you content with this? He answered heavily. You enter, father, misses your mother. Li Xingsha broke through the northern barbarians' capital and beheaded the enemy leader beneath the city walls. The court was shaken. The emperor hurriedly named Li Xingsha Marquis of Dingbei, rewarding him with gold and silver, and bestowing beautiful concubines. Li Xingsha returned to the capital to receive his title. After one trip to the palace, he obtained his title and an estate, and came excitedly to fetch me. I asked him, "What about the military command of the Northern Guard Army?" His face was full of smiles, barely concealing his pride. I handed it over to His Majesty. Rest assured, my lady. I understand the principle that one's merits shouldn't overshadow the ruler. I was so angry I pounded and hit him. He took it all and even held my hands in return. My lady, I only handed over the Northern Guard Army, but isn't your husband still here? He pulled me into his embrace, and I caught a glimpse of shadows flickering outside the eaves. Li Xingsha and I moved to the new estate, and father was also released from house arrest, regaining his freedom. The days of abundance and peace had only lasted a year before the emperor made his move. Li Xingsha was accused of still having ties with the northern frontier. Letters were found in his room instructing his confidants to reclaim military power over the Northern Defense Army. After more than 20 years, the emperor was still using the same old tricks. Li Xingsha was imprisoned and sentenced to beheading that very day. I kowtowed until my forehead bled in front of my father's courtyard. I beg father, please save my husband's life. Father had grown even older. He could barely muster the strength to help me up. He said he had begged His Majesty to let me return home and spare my life. Yuaner, once things blow over, father will find you another good match. I touched my slightly swollen belly and said hoarsely, Father, I am carrying his child. Father's eyelashes veiled his eyes. I couldn't read his emotions. Yuaner, it is all right. The day Li Xingsha was escorted to the execution grounds, his wife, pregnant, wept inconsolably below the platform, crying as if the heavens would fall. Then a long arrow deflected the executioner's blade, just as it was about to fall. Li Xingsha's soldiers had come, not my Northern Defense Army, but the army he had painstakingly built over decades. When the emperor says you are plotting rebellion, you'd better actually be. The army entered the capital, rescued Li Xingsha, and his wife also vanished without a trace. The emperor was furious. He had the Marquis of Changping bound and placed before the army attacking the palace. My father let them do as they pleased, keeping his head bowed and saying nothing. I didn't show myself. I only had Li Xingsha shout a message to him. Father, it is all right. His head drooped even lower. Li Xingsha did not enter the palace, but had the army surround the imperial palace. Then Song Jin appeared. They forged letters from Li Xing plotting rebellion, planted the emperor's spies in Li's mansion, and had every member of the Northern Guard testify that they had no further contact with Marquis Li Song. Jin collected the evidence piece by piece, then spread it throughout the capital. Everyone knew that General Li had defeated the Northern Yi, and was forced by the monarch into rebellion. But being forced couldn't change the fact of rebellion. So I brought Yuan Mao here, along with a Marquis of Changping who was no longer quite lucid. Yuan Mao confessed everything about the events of that year. The current emperor, formerly Prince Chang, conspired with the Marquis of Changping, forcing Yuan Mao to forge evidence framing Minister Zhang for colluding with the Yai, which implicated the former Crown Prince Rang. My father had no spirit, just blankly agreed to everything. The emperor framed loyal ministers twice and only became emperor by pulling the crown prince down. His claim to the throne was no longer legitimate. There was still one final dose of strong medicine missing: the former crown prince, Li Rang, and Li Xingsha. His surname is Li. His given name is Xingsha. Li Xingsha is the bloodline of the former crown prince Li Rang. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. The emperor, in the great hall, slumped on the dragon throne, screaming without regard for his image. Your Highness, Song Jin has brought supporters of the former crown prince, numerous in count. They were either demoted and became depressed, or stayed at court but were constantly suppressed. Song Jin traveled around, bringing them back one by one. Li Xingsha crossed his arms over his chest, raising an eyebrow at the emperor. Imperial uncle, why are you so certain this is absolutely impossible? Don't call me Imperial uncle. You are not worthy. Li Xingsha approached the emperor step by step, exuding an unbearable pressure. After all, my father was only demoted to a commoner. You never took his life, nor did you deprive him of the ability to marry and have children. What is more, when he was demoted, he already had a pair of children. The emperor waved his sleeves, the dragon patterns embroidered with gold thread roaring silently. Impossible, I clearly already. Li Xingsha pressed the emperor into the dragon throne, his sharp brows and eyes glaring at him fiercely for a moment, making him swallow his unfinished words. Then he sneered. Imperial uncle, watch your words. If word got out that he seized the throne through underhanded means, and then slaughtered his own brothers and nephews, the emperor's already precarious authority would be completely destroyed. The emperor returned the throne to Li Xingsha and voluntarily requested to be exiled to the frontier. Li Xingsha said that this imperial uncle had once assassinated the entire family of the deposed crown prince, who had become a commoner, leaving only him alive. So, he would also spare the deposed emperor's life, Sparing a political enemy's wretched life should be seen as contempt. Li Xingsha became emperor, made me empress, and appointed Song Jin as prime minister. Many were dissatisfied with a female prime minister, among them quite a few former officials of the previous crown prince, and a number of Song Jin's good friends in the capital. Li Xingsha said only one thing. Song Jin first guarded the capital for me and helped me break through the northern barbarians. Then she mediated for me, helping me ascend to the high position. Whoever's merit surpasses hers may nominate themselves for prime minister. Li Xingsha asked me how Yuan Mao should be dealt with. During those years in the desert, he knew that Yuan Mao and I had been exchanging views and discussions, already forming the beginnings of a friendship despite our age difference. I didn't know how to decide, so I simply left it to Li Xingsha to handle on his own. Under those circumstances back then, Crown Prince Rang and my grandfather could barely protect themselves. And Yuan Mao, a mere minor advisor, was coerced into giving false testimony. Even if it weren't him, there would have been someone else. Li Xingsha agreed, but said, "There is one person you must deal with yourself." Inside the Zhao prison, iron bars separated elegance and nobility from ruin and decay. On the outside was me. On the inside was my father. The last time I saw Yuan Mao was at the execution ground. Li Xingsha said he had originally planned to spare Yuan Mao, to let him get lost somewhere far away and live out his days. Yuan Mao requested his own death, only asking that I look after his parents. After hearing this news, I went to see him in prison. I asked him, "Back then my father hadn't even found your family, merely threatened your life, and you agreed to work for him. You must have been someone who cherished your life dearly. How come you want to be an upright person today?" Yuan Mao drained the wine in his cup and smiled wistfully. "Song Xiao, Your Majesty the Empress, didn't you say it yourself? Back then, he didn't find my parents. I did find them, but I wouldn't use an elderly couple on death's door as leverage. Yuan Mao, you really look down on me too much." "Nonsense, I don't look down on your Majesty," he sighed miserably to himself. "It is myself that I look down on. If he lives, he'll surely end up destitute, cursed by everyone, and his poor old parents would have to suffer along with him. If he dies, I'll treat his parents generously. Last time, he fought for his own way out. This time, he walks through death's door for his parents. At the execution ground, I wore a veil, supported by Qiying, standing below the platform to see Yuan Mao off. The executioner drank boldly, spraying the liquor onto his blade. Yuan Mao sang out loud. Winds and clouds overturn. The chess game ends. Pieces fall. Black and white both turn to void. Had I become a ghost beneath the steps back then, perhaps I'd have won half a stroke in history's records. Ask not of right and wrong beneath the yellow springs. The mortal world has always dwelt between being and nothingness. My father has been in high spirits lately. Whether locked in the imperial prison or confined in a cramped courtyard, he always looks full of life and vigor. As if to say, as long as I spare his life, he'll keep on living no matter what. I can't understand it. A man who sought power and dominance, not hesitating to sacrifice his own wife, living without any dignity whatsoever. Yet he can actually be happy. I couldn't stomach it, so I decided to go make him bear the brunt of my anger. In the dilapidated courtyard entangled with cobwebs where birds never venture, he and I looked at each other in silence. This is the courtyard where I imprisoned him. Father, do you know where this is? His face was amiable, and he could even manage to pull out a smile. I don't know. Wherever the Empress wants me to live, I'll live there. Father, this is the Zhang residence. You lived here for over 3 years when you served as a courtyard guard. I pointed at the half-dead tree nearby. That is the pagoda tree you planted with your own hands when you secretly admired Mother. Don't you remember? His expression became somewhat unnatural. I paced around the courtyard on my own, looking around with great interest. Indeed, after Minister Zhang's household was raided, The Jiang residence has been haunted by wronged spirits night after night. After so many years, it has become like this. It is normal that father can't remember. Father, back then, you alone with a single sword personally slaughtered the entire Jiang household. You didn't even spare the servants and children hiding in the well. You should be very familiar with this residence. Shall your daughter take you around to help father recall the memories? My father's face turned deathly pale, weak, and dejected. I felt much better. I was about to leave with a flick of my sleeve when I accidentally stepped on the half-dead tree trunk and stumbled. Me father hurriedly steadied me, staring at my sizable belly, and said anxiously, "Your Majesty the Empress, be careful of the imperial child." What was that expression on his face, Joy? Hope. So that is how it is. Li Xing's rear palace has only me, and I hold the position of Empress. This child witnessed his ascension to the throne from within my womb, naturally making it incomparably noble. This almost means, as long as it is a boy, he'll surely become the crown prince. My power, hungry, status, obsessed father has been a general and a marquis, but he has never been the maternal grandfather of the next emperor. Father, you value this child so much. Too bad, I am going to disappoint you. Shadow Guard Xiao said he found traces of Lu Mingwang, and I hurriedly had him lead me in pursuit. The place where the Shadow Guard caught him, coincidentally or not, was the very same desolate woods on the outskirts where Lu Mingwang stabbed me to death in my previous life. He was pressed down by my men, kneeling in a pile of dead leaves, his eyes glaring at me darkly. I never participated in Prince Chang's usurpation. What crime have I committed? I sat upright in a bamboo chair, looking down from above, and smiled contemptuously. I was already married, yet you still insisted on taking me, abducting a civilian woman. You can't escape punishment in life, and don't even think about escaping death. He struggled unwillingly a couple of times, was pressed back into the dirt with greater force, and said through gritted teeth, "I merely once admired you. Why must you hunt me down to extinction? Coveting the emperor's woman, your life is forfeit." He shouted at the top of his lungs, nearly resentful. You even spared Yuan Mao, yet you insist on coming after me relentlessly. I pondered for a moment, then nodded in agreement. Seeing a glimmer of hope just appear in his eyes, I decisively continued. Only His Majesty, and I know the inside story of the Yuan Mao affair. You eavesdropped on royal secrets. You absolutely cannot be allowed to live. Lu Mingwang was truly enraged, practically livid. But he didn't finish his words, because I thrust my sword through his left chest, and blood gurgled out of his mouth. In case his heart was on the right side, I pulled out the sword and stabbed his right chest as well. In case he'd taken a fake death pill, I cut off his hands and feet, and poked each of his facial features twice. This way, even if he came back from the dead, he'd be a cripple. I couldn't stand looking at a crippled Lu Mingwang either. So I had the Shadow Guards help him relax his body a bit. Head tossed off a cliff, upper body thrown in the river, lower body fed to wild dogs. Now he was definitely completely dead. In case he got rebirth. Forget it. There is nothing I can do about that. We'll just hack at each other again when the time comes. My pregnancy was far along, making it inconvenient to leave the palace, and Li Xingxia stayed by my side day and night. When attending court, he also brought me along, letting me rule from behind the curtain. Song Qin in her court robes, looking all serious while arguing with people, always made me want to laugh. Behind the curtain, while Li Xingxia kept an eye on the minister's debates below, he would also nuzzle my head from time to time, rub my hands, and stroke my pregnant belly, so I wouldn't get too bored. Days passed peacefully like this, until the woman behind the curtain suddenly had her water break. The court session was suspended, and Li Xingxia hurried back to the palace with me in a rush for the delivery. A cry broke through the hopeful anticipation, and the midwife joyfully exclaimed, "Congratulations, Your Majesty! It is a little princess." I carried the princess to Li Xingsha and gently touched her soft little cheeks. Your Majesty, it is a daughter. Li Xingsha's smile didn't fade. No matter, we just need to plan a few more steps ahead for her. Li Xingsha's identity was exposed, even though I had helped conceal it for years. There were too many eyes and ears in the palace and court halls. Walls always have cracks. Besides, she personally gave birth to the princess, which was truly hard to hide. Within just a few days, word got out. In the court hall, still behind the curtain, Li Xingsha's body had not yet recovered, struggling to hold up her weak head. Zhang Tan, the Vice Minister of Rights, struck first. Empress, we already know that His Majesty allowing you to attend court behind the curtain was merely to conceal His Majesty's heavily pregnant figure. Now that the princess has been born, why does the Empress bother with such unnecessary measures? I thought he had a point. So I lifted the curtain, walked down from the platform, stood before him, and looked straight at him. Zhang Tan retreated several steps before steadying himself, stammering, "Thursday, this is against protocol," I asked with great interest. "Against which protocol? How can there be a woman in the court hall?" He clamped his lips shut, glanced at Song Jin, who was squinting at him, then looked toward the figure of the sovereign behind the curtain, and weakly said, "How can a woman from the inner palace meddle in politics?" Li Xingsha's deep voice came from behind the curtain, tinged with a hint of laziness. "What you say makes sense, my dear minister." Zhang Tan's eyes lit up slightly, his back straightening a bit. "Proclaim my decree. Song Liyuan has rendered meritorious service in accompanying me, and shall be granted the title of Marquis of Anning, bestowed 1,000 taels of gold, and a fief of 10,000 households." While Zhang Tan was still stammering, "This isn't proper," I swiftly stepped forward and performed the kowtow, loudly declaring, "This humble servant thanks your Majesty for the reward." The court sounded like snakes had slithered in, with hissing sounds rising one after another. Zhuangxi stepped forward, putting on an expression of deep anguish. "Your Majesty, you ascended the throne as a woman, deceiving us so cruelly." Li Xingsha's figure straightened up, and a faint voice came out. "When did I ever say I was a man?" Zhuangxi said with great grievance. "Your Majesty has always appeared in men's attire." Li Xingsha said helplessly, "I plan for the nation's affairs. Women's clothing is truly too cumbersome, not to mention during military campaigns. How about this, to prevent future generations from disguising themselves in men's attire? We shall prepare women's versions of official robes, merchant garments, and military uniforms. Would that satisfy you, my dear minister?" It seemed reasonable, yet utterly unreasonable. Zhuangxi hastily said, "What does your Majesty mean by this?" "Naturally, women are allowed to enter officialdom, engage in commerce, and join the army." Li Xingsha sighed with regret. "The sons and daughters of our great Yu dynasty can pacify the realm with their pens and settle the world from horseback. Confining women to the inner chambers, wouldn't that be cutting off half our wings? Whenever I think of it, it fills me with endless melancholy and sorrow." Zhuangxi struggled desperately. "Your Majesty, you are a woman and the Empress. The Marquis of Anning is also a woman. How can women marry each other?" Li Xingxia found this quite reasonable, so she said, "Pass my decree, if two are mutually in love, women may wed each other." Zhuangxi held his forehead and exclaimed, "Your Majesty." Li Xingsha twisted the knife further. "Men may also marry each." "Your Majesty." The Minister of Works, whose only son born in his old age was a cut-sleeve, hastily interrupted. "Your Majesty's supreme person is not bound by gender. Let us discuss other matters." Li Xingsha rubbed her temples and said lazily, "My Empress has been enfafofed as the Marquis of Anning, so it is no longer suitable for her to remain in the position of Empress. I wish to hold a consort selection. What do you, dear ministers, think?" The ministers drew in a cold breath, silently shocked. Li Xingxia's trusted aides had long known she was a woman, so naturally they didn't care. In the eyes of these orthodox, rebellious ministers, who had male superiority engraved in their bones, it was as if a wild throne was beckoning to them. In their view, the newborn princess was naturally not qualified to be the heir. If their own son entered the palace as consort and helped Her Majesty bear a dragon son, then that legitimate eldest grandson would become the crown prince. The emperor sincerely inviting them to scheme for power and usurp the throne, who wouldn't be tempted. In the hall, they scrambled to submit memorials, each recommending their own sons and grandsons. There were even some younger officials who offered themselves for the bedchamber, but were politely declined by Li Xingsha. In the empty and deathly silent Changping Marquis manor, father sat idly in the courtyard. He had nothing left: power, the Marquis title, the dream of his grandchild becoming emperor, all shattered together. He harbored one last wishful thought, looking at my flat belly, and murmured, "You honor, you are weak after childbirth. Why aren't you resting properly?" I scoffed. "Father, Her Majesty can conceive a princess on her own. Why would I need to overstep my bounds?" The last light in his eyes extinguished, and he muttered the same words over and over. "Yuener, I miss your mother." The new emperor opened wide the selection, and all eligible young men could participate. Every family dressed up their sons and grandsons to the nines, scrambling over each other to send them into the palace. Nobles came to my residence in droves to inquire about Li Xingsha's preferences, wearing down my doorstep, eager beyond measure. I repeatedly mentioned that Her Majesty wasn't into women, only fancied men. Otherwise, why would she have given birth to a princess herself? And why would she have sent me out of the palace as soon as she regained her female form? But those people didn't believe me. Song Jin's lips curved upward, teasing me with a smile. "Elder sister, the civil and military officials who visit your residence far outnumber those at mine." I punched her playfully. "Prime Minister Song, remember to maintain your official dignity and stop fooling around with an idle marquis like me." I had no interest in stirring up court politics, nor did I ask Li Xingsha for any official position. Asking for some empty titles and wealth was enough to satisfy me. Song Jin took a light sip, then asked me thoughtfully, "Elder sister, after all these years of scheming, what is it you want? If you had stayed by your father's side with how much he doted on you, he would have chosen a fine husband to marry into the family, and you would have become the young madam of the Marquis residence. This residence would still be yours." Song Jin wanted to ask why. After going through all this trouble, I helped her become prime minister, helped Li Xingsha become emperor, yet only took a powerless marquis title for myself. I asked her in return, "Song Jin, what is the highest position a woman can reach?" In the past, it would have been the emperor's wife, the mother of the nation. Now, it is to be ennobled as a marquis, appointed as prime minister, or even to become emperor or king. Under the new policies, women are no longer bound by law and can pursue whatever they wish to become, although the invisible customs and traditions still confine them. But Li Xingsha, Song Jin, and I are all showing that there is a possibility that they don't have to spend their whole lives learning only to assist their husbands and raise children depending on others. They can traverse high mountains and cross countless rivers because someone has already done so. Families like my mother's, with illustrious lineage but only a single daughter, don't have to entrust their daughter to a man. A woman can support the family herself. Then there wouldn't be inviting wolves into the house, pulling those dirty tricks of devouring heirless households, and reclaiming lineage after 3 generations. As things are now, this is exactly what I sought. What comes after? Women will fight for themselves. My father escaped. The broken courtyard lock swayed. People gone and building left empty. The Shao Shadow Guard said those who abducted my father weren't many, but each was agile and skilled. They'd let their guard down for a moment and let them succeed. Let me guess. What is he trying to accomplish by using methods he never resorted to before, even during times of repeated setbacks and humiliation? I dispatched all my people to track down my father's whereabouts. I also sought help from Li Xingsha, and she ordered all the capital's guards to help me find him. Based on trust from years of cooperation, I only said the deposed marquise has grand schemes, and Li Xingsha handed over her people to me without further questions. The entire capital searched thoroughly for 3 days and nights, and finally found my father at a mountain peak outside the city. From here, one could overlook the entire city. A crude ritual altar enshrined the emperor of Fengdu, cinnabar drawn into a massive Taiji Bagua diagram, several death warriors surrounding it. At the cliff's edge, an old Taoist priest stood beside my father. In the very center of the Bagua diagram was a young child. The child wore white robes, gaze innocent and dazed, 4 pupils visible in their eyes. Double pupils! I drew my bow and nocked an arrow, shooting at my father's leg. The arrow was deflected away by his death warriors. The guards behind me all raised their crossbows, arrows on the strings, and I hurriedly waved to stop them. That man's attire was no longer luxurious. His figure had grown thinner by a few degrees, and in his eyes there was neither desolation nor sorrow, only resolve. I walked forward slowly. Father waved back the assassins who were ready to draw their swords and watched me quietly. Father, you had them perform the ritual here. Do you know who the sacrifices are? He gazed at the square city below the mountain and casually spoke of Earth, shattering matters without a ripple. Naturally, the people of the capital. 1,000 or so will suffice. A bleak smile tugged at the corner of his lips. Yuan, this time Father won't take you along. You are too unpredictable. You nearly made it impossible for Father to perform the rebirth ritual again. I slung the bow and arrows behind my back, slowly approaching him step by step, testing the waters. Father, have you forgotten? The sacrifices will completely vanish in the next life, just like those 2,000 people of Black Gold City. You and Mother are both people of the capital. If 1,000 people in the city vanish, how great a change will that cause? In the next life, will you still be able to meet Mother and fall in love with her? The old Taoist stared at the double-pupiled child at the center of the formation with near madness. Yet his feet dared not step even half a step into the formation. He wished he could tear off his own head and throw it in to sea. The child showed neither joy nor sorrow, tossing the 3 copper coins in his hand. Once, twice. My father pointed his sword at me. Black Gold City vanished, yet Yuan Mao survived and helped me forge letters once again. But it seems some things cannot be changed. Yuaner, don't come any closer. Indeed it was so, actually, having lived through it again. Once I could speak, I told Mother time and time again to find Yuan Mao, as he might be able to overturn the Jiang family's case. Even if she couldn't find him, at least having something to hope for would keep her going. But when I was 3, Mother eavesdropped on Father talking with his confidant outside the study, and learned that Yuan Mao was already dead. That night, a mother and daughter bid their final farewell, while a grief-stricken daughter saw her parents. I don't know if news of Yuan Mao faking his death got out in my previous life. But just like in the previous life, Mother died. Father obtained the double-pupiled child again, and wanted to undergo rebirth. If Mother were alive, Father wouldn't have gone through all that trouble to cast the rebirth spell, and the thread of causality would have snapped. So, from the moment I returned through rebirth, I was destined to be unable to save Mother. The double-pupiled child tossed the copper coins a few more times. Father's eyes were filled with hope, stubbornness, and determination. No matter how many times I start over, the main events won't change. I will marry a Yi again, and then have you. I choked out in grief. But Mother will also hang herself again, leave us again. He was only moved for a moment before resolve covered his eyes again. Yuaner, do you know? From when I returned victorious and asked for your mother's hand, until we married and had you, that was the happiest time of my life. Father just wants to live through those days one more time. Even if it means turning against his beloved and his own flesh and blood, He won't hesitate. The double-pupiled child called out in a childish voice. Father, the auspicious hour has arrived. Father, isn't Liu Shan dead? My father replied to him. Tonger, don't forget the promise you made with your father. Chang Tongzi gave a slight bow. As you command, father. Oh, my dear father, you really do love going around playing daddy to everyone. I suddenly charged forward, my hand behind my back gripping an arrow tightly, but father withdrew his long sword and slashed his own neck. I hurriedly tossed the arrow aside, and when I caught him, blood stained both our lapels. His lips opened and closed in agony, but I couldn't hear a single word. I clearly had 100 ways to kill him before, yet I insisted on keeping him, imprisoning him, tormenting him. Was it revenge, or reluctance to let go? How come I can't remember anymore? The death warriors drew their swords and readied their crossbows, tightly protecting Chang Tongzi behind them. The child waved a black banner taller than himself, chanting incantations, and father's phantom rose from his corpse, lingering around the black banner. The disembodied soul, masterless, lost, was drawn to rush toward Chang Tongzi again and again. I saw above the capital, the sky dome spread wide, and the sun sank in broad daylight. After talking for so long, I knew father had been stalling for time earlier, and wasn't I doing the same? The guards parted a path, escorting someone forward in quick steps. The person I'd been waiting for had arrived. That person had coarse cloth wrapped around her hair, a slightly sallow complexion, joyful yet anxious. She cried out in grief. Child, come to mother. She was Yang Yan Chang Tongzi's birth mother. I had always kept track of her whereabouts, and brought Yang Yan to the capital 3 days ago when father went missing. I ordered the guards to engage the death warriors with full force and reclaim the double-pupiled child. Blades clashed, yet Yang Yan ignored everything and rushed forward. The death warriors didn't care who stood before them, slashing their swords down. I knocked my bow and shot toward the double-pupiled child. The death warrior swiftly turned to deflect the arrow, and only then did Yang Yan get the opening to slip into the Bagua formation. You country bumpkin, ruining my plans. The old Taoist blew his beard and glared, raising his peachwood sword to attack Yang Yan. I shot an arrow into his thigh. The death warriors protected the double-pupiled child, but wouldn't care whether the old Taoist lived or died. The old Taoist crashed onto the ground on his rear, clutching his thigh and shrieking wildly, yet still yelled at the double-pupiled child. Good disciple, hurry and cast the spell. Use everyone here as sacrifice. I shot another arrow into the old Taoist's right chest. He stared in shock at the arrow in his chest, drew a deep breath, but what came out was wet, scalding blood. He'd committed countless evils in both lifetimes. I wouldn't care whether he lived or died. Under the guard's cover, Yang Yan desperately charged to the center of the formation, tightly embracing the child, soothing him, calling to him. Child, mother is here. Mother has finally found you. The child froze for a moment, murmuring blankly, Mother, what is a mother? I only have father. Father said, as long as I do as he says, he'll give me everything he has. Yang Yan gently stroked the back of the child's neck, her face full of heartache. Mother means, even if you do nothing, mother will give you everything. The black banner swayed for a few moments, slowly toppled sideways, kicking up a cloud of yellow dust as it hit the ground. Chang Tongzi tilted his head, leaned close to Yang Yan, and his expression relaxed. Few death soldiers remained. Our people won. Father's soul rose faintly from the banner, drifting toward Chang Tongzi. But the moment it touched Yang Yan's body, it was repelled. He looked at the embracing mother and son, lost and confused. He gradually became transparent. He floated toward me, reaching out as if to embrace, then vanished completely. Father's body was buried on the mountain where he died. I couldn't bear to leave his corpse exposed in the wilderness, but I didn't want to fulfill his wish of being buried with mother either. Yang Yan took Chang Tongzi kowtowing thrice with every step, and joined Mao Shan's sect, letting her son become a righteous Taoist priest. I heard that child had exceptional talent, and the sect leader who had been in seclusion for years came out personally to take him as a disciple. I started running the courtyard again, picking up people everywhere. This time, picking up women. Women who were lost about their future, temporarily at rock bottom, could all find a place to rest at the courtyard before going out to make their way in the world. Under the new policies, women from poor families stepped out of their boudoirs, running small businesses to supplement their household income. Countless young women with hidden business talents in their boudoirs emerged, real gold and silver filling their pockets, attracting more women to follow suit. Noble families still refused to let their daughters show their faces in public. They believed only commoners needed to make a living this way. Their daughters did not. Li Xing opened the imperial examinations to women. Talented daughters now had the chance to study. After all, for commoners, rising from civilian to official was ascending to the heavens in one step. Noble daughters still disdained petty officials, until 3 years later, when they went to snatch grooms from beneath the ranking board. They discovered the top scorer was a female Zhuangyuan. Besides marrying a Zhuangyuan, there was another path, becoming one. In the courtyard, I swayed on the swing, watching idly as Kuai-Ying handled all the affairs of the residents on my behalf. She did very well, quite reminiscent of Chancellor Song's style back in the day. I called her over and said, "Kuai-Ying, you should leave." Her eyes misted over, and she was about to kneel immediately, but I hurriedly stopped her. "My lord, has Kuai-Ying done something wrong?" "Nothing else. You are exceptionally capable. Being a steward in my residence is wasting your talents." Kuai-Ying stumbled forward, tugging at my skirt hem and shaking it gently. "My lord, Kuai-Ying has followed you since childhood. Please don't send Kuai-Ying away." I pulled my skirt hem from her hands and helped her stand. "Kuai-Ying, look at this realm, emperor, marquis, chancellor, officials, military, merchants. There are women everywhere. This is the new world that Her Majesty, Chancellor Song, and I built together. If you truly wish to follow me, you should go become one of them, become a part of this new world." The shackles in Kuai-Ying's eyes melted away, her gaze blazing bright, reborn anew. Such a change occurred in every woman's heart, spreading throughout all under heaven side story. Liu Shan, for as long as Liu Shan could remember, there was only a scruffy Taoist priest by his side. The priest had Liu Shan call him master, and taught him many arts and techniques, carving out human hearts to form golden cores, doing filthy deeds for the powerful. He was a natural, as if born for it. Liu Shan had newly obtained a secret formula, said to be able to refine a drug called Qing. But what was Qing? Liu Shan did not know. For the first time, the extraordinarily gifted him failed again and again, tried again and again, only to fail once more. Familial love, romantic love, friendship. He had none of them. Liu Shan was vexed. The old Taoist priest blasted the riverbed, flipped out a roasted fish and handed it to him. Grinning, my obedient disciple, a heaven-blessed prodigy, rarely faces setbacks. Don't be anxious. Want some roasted fish? 3 days later, Liu Shan refined Qing. His 4 eyes lit up, and he called out with immense excitement, "Master, look, I did it." On the ground, the old Taoist priest bled from all 7 orifices, eyes wide open in death. Liu Shan had used the old Taoist priest as a sacrifice to refine Qing. But what kind of Qing the old Taoist priest meant to him, Liu Shan still did not know. Liu Shan remained vexed. He walked out of the mountain cave alone, wandering aimlessly into an unfamiliar village called Liu Family Village. At the village entrance, he encountered a sobbing woman, her grief so profound it was deeply moving. He asked her, "Why do you weep?" The woman spoke softly. Her name was Yang Yan, married off to a butcher in the neighboring village by her parents' orders. Not even half a month into the marriage, the butcher had squandered her entire dowry on drinking and whoring, and would either beat or curse her. Liu Shan's face beneath the bamboo hat was fierce. If you kill him, won't he be unable to beat you anymore? Yang Yan said sorrowfully. What would a bachelor like you understand? When a woman marries, she hopes for mutual affection, to support each other through thick and thin. Otherwise, on such a long road ahead, what is there to live for? Liu Shan was puzzled, but gave the freshly refined love to Yang Yan. Eat this, and you'll find someone who truly loves you, who'll cherish and adore you. Yang Yan took the round ball that looked like a hawthorn pill, smiling through her tears. Thank you for your kind comfort. That butcher doesn't deserve my love. If someone truly gives their love to me, let it be in the next life. Yang Yan swallowed the love, sweet and sour, just like a hawthorn pill. Liu Shan left Liu family village wandering everywhere, acting even more recklessly. He drew the court's attention and was cornered by Marquis Changping. Marquis Changping dismissed his men and said, as long as he helped him with one thing, he would let him go. Liu Shan agreed. Marquis Changping brought him to Black Gold City. On a sand dune, inside an exquisite coffin, lay a beautiful young girl, sword through the heart, long dead. Marquis Changping asked him to perform the rebirth technique, to send himself and the girl in the coffin back to the past. This technique was against heaven and reason. Disregarding humanity, it suited Liu Shan's intentions perfectly, so he agreed without hesitation. When the souls of the middle-aged man and the young girl emerged, and Haijin City was soaked in blood, Liu Shan suddenly felt everything was meaningless. Since childhood, everyone feared and loathed his double pupils, except for his master. There was no master anymore. As the technique was about to complete, and the heavens were about to close, Liu Shan gouged out his own eyes and threw them into the sacrificial altar. He sacrificed his own eyes. Who knows what kind of life the next world would bring? Extra chapter. Li Xing Part 2. Her crown prince father doted on her. Her mother spoiled her. Her twin elder brother yielded to her. Li Shaxing's childhood was arrogant and willful. It is just that her father always forced her to study things like the 4 books and 5 classics, military tactics and strategies. Though she was interested, her childish nature acted up, and she often rebelled and skipped lessons. When her father punished her, Li Shaxing secretly stuck out her tongue and pouted coquettishly. "Father, I'll make it up tomorrow. Can I go out and play on the streets a bit longer today?" She liked dressing up in men's clothes when going out, being mistaken for her twin elder brother, putting on airs while chatting freely with people. If her identity was exposed, she'd just laugh it off. If she managed to fool them, she could brag about it in front of her brother for days. This day, neither her father nor her brother was anywhere to be seen. Her father's close friend, Master Wang, brought her brother's ceremonial robe, the very one she had coveted for a long time. She happily put them on and twirled around and around in front of Mr. Wang. "Uncle Wang, do I look like my elder brother?" Mr. Wang turned his face away, his voice tinged with sorrow. "Very much so." Li Shaxing couldn't wait to leave the courtyard, and bumped right into her hurrying father's arms. Before she could even describe her proud creation, her father unleashed a torrent of scolding. "A daughter's body, yet you dress in disguise all day, such improper conduct. Go kneel in the hall yourself." Father had never used such harsh words as improper conduct toward her, nor had he ever roughly stripped off her outer garments, tearing and crumpling them. She felt terribly wronged, wiping her tears as she fled, not hearing the heated argument between her father and Mr. Wang behind her. "Your Highness, you mustn't be reluctant. Only this way can we preserve the bloodline and have a chance to rise again. I never knew Mr. Wang could be so ruthless. Xinger is my bloodline too. A fate she shouldn't have to bear. Why force her?" Li Shaxing swore in the hall that she wouldn't speak a single word to her father for 10 days. The birthday gift for next month, a wooden sword she carved with her own hands. She wouldn't give it to father anymore. She'd give it to mother instead. As she fumed, she suddenly heard the sounds of weapons and arrows. Unease crept over her heart as she walked out of the hall in a daze, and saw Third Uncle with blood on his lapel. Third Uncle swung his sword at her, and she was at a loss. Just then, a subordinate came to report that the imperial grandson was dead. The body had been examined, and it was indeed him. Third Uncle sneered, put down his sword, and left with a flick of his sleeve. Li Shaxing walked out of the courtyard. Father, elder brother, mother, not a single one was left. Her body suddenly felt light as she was lifted and carried in several leaps, scaling rooftops and traversing walls, landing in a dark alley. Grief surged forth, but a pair of large hands covered her mouth and nose. It was Mr. Wang. If you want the Crown Prince's last bloodline to end as well, then go ahead and wail. Li Shaxing bit her lips tightly, tears falling silently. Mr. Wang took her fleeing into the great desert. Here were her father's trusted confidants, all gloomy and dispirited, completely devoid of vitality. Whenever they looked at her, hope and disappointment merged into one. Hope because she was the Crown Prince's bloodline. Disappointment for what? Mr. Wang spoke bluntly. If the one who survived were the imperial grandson, we might still have a chance to stake our lives on one more fight. Li Shaxing didn't understand. She and her brother looked exactly alike, and she was no less capable in strategy and discourse. Mr. Wang, am I not good enough? To avenge father, brother, and mother, to cut down the enemy's head beneath my sword. I not capable? Mr. Wang sighed and shook his head. How can a woman's body accomplish great endeavors? Li Shaxing threw herself fiercely into her studies, learning everything 100, 1,000 times over. Whether she liked it or not, her father's confidants lamented the state of the world, only mustering half their spirit when teaching her. She learned to dig canals and divert water, channeling the Black River into the desert, securing a patch of fertile land to grow rice. In the first year of the rice harvest, the master who taught her water management stroked his beard and sighed. The student surpasses the teacher, yet alas, having only provisions, serves no purpose. She traversed the entire desert wilderness, committing every grassland to memory, and bought breeding horses to raise a herd. The groom who tended her horses sighed. Fine steeds matched with us old, weak, sick, and crippled. What a pity. She wandered far and wide, gathering herders driven to desperation by the barbarian tribes and homeless disaster victims, giving them food and teaching them the art of warfare. She had an army now. Leading her fledgling army, she encountered the barbarian elite cavalry on her very first engagement. Li Shaxing ordered a handful of men to drag tree branches while racing across the desert. From afar, it looked like an army of tens of thousands. The barbarians were terrified and fled in panic. After several such deceptions, the barbarians finally saw through the ruse, flew into a rage, and came sweeping back. When the two armies faced off, the barbarians realized with alarm that they had been lured by the mirage of a great army ever farther from water sources. Li Shaxing had long since ordered her men to store water. The barbarians, desperate for water and showing exhaustion, still attacked fiercely, seeking a quick victory. Li Shaxing mounted her horse and personally led her army into battle. At the height of the battle, a sudden stabbing pain struck her lower abdomen, faintly staining the horse's back red. Head spinning, drenched in sweat, on the verge of losing consciousness, she used leather straps to secure her legs and waist to the horse's back. An extremely risky move. If she fainted, she would become a living target on the battlefield. But this way, even if she died, the horse would still carry her across the battlefield, temporarily steadying the troops' morale. Fortunately, a narrow victory. Her subordinates hurriedly untied the tightly wound leather straps for her. She held on with her last shred of strength until Mr. Wang arrived. Mr., after fighting on horseback for so long, despite enduring the jolting, there is a stabbing pain in my lower abdomen. My body is weak. When she woke, Mr. Wang had found an old woman to care for her and teach her how to handle menstruation. Mr. Wang said she had grown up. Mr. Wang also changed his address, calling her young master. A woman's body cannot achieve great ambitions. Why is that? While Li Xiaxing was unconscious, Mr. Wang pondered throughout the night. Lack of talent is virtue. Inaction is action. But these are words of worldly indoctrination. The true difference between women and men is the monthly menstruation and the burden of 10 months pregnancy that shackle women. Yet their young master, even experiencing her first period, still crushed the enemy, something even men would struggle to do. The resolve to sacrifice her life for the army, all for a single victory, is even rarer, one in 10,000. The young master brought new hope. Under the young master's leadership, their forces grew ever more powerful. This bred complacency and recklessness. A subordinate general let slip while drunk, leaking military secrets to a visiting capital official. That night, the nascent cause suffered devastating losses. Master Wang stood before the army with his great blade, his expression fierce, personally beheading the general who had leaked secrets. He listed out the wrongdoings, his own. The first was that after Crown Prince Rang was deposed, before he was assassinated by Prince Chang, he had lured the young master into wearing the imperial grandson's clothes, hoping he would die in his stead. This act was the utmost disloyalty, and Master Wang took his own life before the army. Li Xiaxing couldn't stop him in time, only catching his dying words. Young master is gifted with brilliance, and has received all I've learned in my lifetime. This subordinate has nothing left to teach the young master. Today is the last time. This is also the last thing this subordinate can do to help the young master. Young master, don't cry. After Master Wang's death, everyone was grief-stricken and shaken, confessing their own sins one after another. After that night, military discipline became strict. Years later, the army had taken proper shape, but their influence in the capital was weak, and the situation unclear. Li Xiaxing heard that a noble woman from the capital had fled to the desert, leading nomads to fight back against the northern Yi. The daughter of the Marquis of Changping, Song Liyuan. She was both the granddaughter of his father's mentor and Li Xiaxing's cousin, yet also the daughter of a political enemy. Li Xiaxing couldn't figure out where she stood, and had secretly observed her for a long time. He saw her surrounded at the frontier, fiercely drawing her bow to shoot enemies, not forgetting to hurl curses as she did. You hypocrites, who gained your power through exploitation, all you know is bullying women. You despicable scoundrels who bully the weak and invade our land, eat an arrow from your granny. When I rise again, I'll slaughter you all till you weep. Li Xiaxing let out a PFFT of laughter, exposing herself. Song Liyuan shouted at her, "Help me escape, and I'll repay you 100-fold. How about it?" Li Xiaxing smiled softly and nodded. Later, they had many stories together. 3 years after Li Xingsha ascended the throne, the harem was full. Handsome men vied jealously against each other, and the court was rife with open spears and hidden arrows. She implemented new policies. Minister Zhang supported them. Minister Liu opposed them. That very night, Li Xingsha flipped attendant Zhang's nameplate. At nightfall, she bestowed contraceptive soup upon attendant Zhang. Zhang Lang, the new policies are a long and arduous road. I have no capacity to bear a prince for now. Once the new policies take root, let's have a child of our own, okay? Attendant Zhang was overjoyed, and Minister Zhang threw himself even more wholeheartedly into supporting the new policies. Over 7 or 8 years, apart from the eldest princess, not a single child was born in the harem. Li Xingsha named the eldest princess as crown princess and granted her the Eastern Palace. The ministers were in uproar. Those nobles who had gone to great lengths to send their sons and grandsons into the palace openly berated the emperor in court. Li Xingsha waved her hand. Execute them. Heads rolled, and the emperor enumerated their crimes: embezzling disaster relief funds, bullying men and oppressing women, accepting bribes and leaking imperial examination questions. Li Xingsha listed them one by one. The ministers below who had committed petty thefts and hadn't yet been called to account dared not even look at Li Xingsha. She was no longer that young monarch who had first entered the capital. Now she sat firmly on this throne. After court adjourned, Li Xingsha was in a good mood and went to the secluded villa where third uncle was confined. Once the body of an emperor. Now all 4 limbs were maimed. The eunuch took out a wooden box. Li Xingsha clapped her hands, and the box was placed before third uncle. Inside the box was her cousin, third uncle's 8th son. Third uncle's eyes nearly split with rage as he roared with a hoarse voice, cursing her as a lowly scoundrel, worse than a beast. Li Xingsha picked at her ear as if listening to heavenly music. Third uncle, you still have 2 sons and over 30 nephews. On your birthday next year, I'll send another one to visit you. You must stay alive and see them all, one by one. Third uncle's 8th son should be 17 this year, of course, if he were still alive. The head in the box still bore the face of a 10-year-old child. Back in the year she ascended the throne, Li Xingsha had already killed all of third uncle's descendants, just as third uncle had once done to the late crown prince Rang. Li Xingsha kept them frozen in an ice cellar, bringing one each year to celebrate third uncle's birthday. A man by the roadside, should you pick him up or not? This question shouldn't even be asked. How can your success depend on a man?